Seems like the Flyers have put in an offer to John Tortorella to coach the Flyers. We are going to talk about what that means on a special edition of Locked On Flyers.
Yep, it's happening.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everybody in Flyers land. I'm Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here with Russ Cohen, who's on Twitter at Sportsology. We've got some breaking news from late on Tuesday night. I had already gone to sleep, but woke up to find that via Kevin Weeks, who seems to be breaking news in creative ways, that the Flyers have offered John Tortorella the Flyers head coaching job. Not confirmation that he accepted it. Seems like as of recording, they are still in negotiations, but he has been offered the position. Seems likely that he's going to take it. But what are your initial thoughts, Russ?
No, he's taking it. We've been hearing these rumblings for a while. I think it's just, the usual contract thing, but they wanted to get the word out because if they didn't get the word out because of the Stanley Cup, then they wouldn't be able to get the word out. So I think it got leaked for that reason. The contract will get signed and then it'll be like on the scroll and they won't, and then the NHL won't be mad about it. This was inevitable. I mean, again, Barry Trotz is a great coach, but Barry Trotz has never had to coach a roster like this. And to expect to go to the playoffs in the first year with a roster like this, the way Barry Trotz plays with the personnel the Flyers have, was going to be a ridiculously tall order. It's still a tall order, but this is what Tortorella is used to. So at least you're bringing in a coach that is used to taking over a team that needs a lot of work and a lot of direction and a lot of, a kick in the ass. And that's what he does.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. I feel like you have to live in one of two different worlds for the Flyers right now. One where you would like them to burn everything down, fire everybody, do a complete rebuild. And in that circumstance, John Tortorella is not the right coach for the job,
No.
right? But in the circumstance that we are in, where they've committed to Chuck Fletcher, at least for another year, where he's doing something that he's calling an aggressive retool, where there are going to be some roster changes, but I think ultimately the bulk of the core is going to stay intact of this team. John Tortorella is the right coach for this job. I mean, to your exact points about he has a certain level of creativity, he has a certain level of accountability, which is the biggest thing that the Flyers have been missing is a culture of accountability and winning. And that's something that he can provide in this circumstance. And so, I can understand why if you want option A for the Flyers where you blow everything up, you don't like this hire. But if you're in the world of option B that the Flyers are actually doing this year, I think you got to give him a shot.
No, you do. The downside is I've got a list of 3 players that I don't think can play in a Torts system. Do you want to hear them?
Absolutely.
So JVR is the one, that's obvious. Travis Konecny is another that I don't think would have a great time in Torts system, and Travis Sanheim may be the other one. Now he may be able to do it, but he is going to have to play a lot more aggressive defensively than he's ever before, and he's going to have to do it before they even think about re-signing him because you got to figure Torts is going to be there for another 2 years. So this is a thing now. They're going to have to figure out, is Travis Sanheim now right for this team? Because if not, they could get a fair amount for him in trade, and they might have to trade him.
Here's where I think some of the leadership options on the team can help because I don't think that it's impossible for Travis Sanheim to change the way he approaches things that
Mhm,
doesn't hurt his game to work within the system. And having Cam Atkinson on the team is an invaluable thing at this point
mhm.
because anybody who is in a position where you don't think it might work out under a system like Torts has, he is that bridge and he can help the players, he can help Torts. And I think that I'm particularly grateful that he's on the roster to be able to help in a situation like this.
Yeah, no question. And I think it's a 50-50 dice roll with Sanheim. I think JVR Torts would just
Yeah.
forget it. It would be bad. And Konechny really has never played any good enough defense where all of a sudden he's going to change for this guy and still be able to score 20 goals. I don't think it's in him.
I'm not sure either. And, we've talked about trade scenarios for Konechny and, what his contribution to the team is. And the thing about JVR and him is that they've been options for trades or buyout on the table since the season ended. I mean, we've been sort of assuming that these were options regardless of who the coach is. So if hiring John Tortorella is the nail on the coffin for these guys on the team, honestly, it's not the worst thing in the world, and I think they can get a decent return for Konechny in trade options, but I just think that, focusing on John Tortorella as a coach, I think that given just how bad everything is, if he wants to burn everything to the ground from a systems perspective and from a personnel and from lines and who gets to
Oh yeah, he's
play
gonna
and
start from
how to
scratch that way.
yeah, and I think that's what this team needs. If it's
Yeah.
gonna be, this core with some of these young kids that Chuck Fletcher is sort of locked into place, like, sure, let's do it.
He doesn't
I
care what
just don't
Kevin
think how
Hayes
things can
makes.
get worse.
He doesn't care what Kevin Hayes makes. If to him
Yeah.
Kevin Hayes is the third line center, then guess what? He's the third line center. He's not going to care what anybody makes. He's not going to care what's left on their contract. He's not going to care about any of that stuff. He's not going to care about the draft or who the Flyers draft. He really isn't. He goes there, but he doesn't really have that much input because he looks at the here and now. And even someone like Morgan Frost, who I think had a really good season in the sense that his faceoffs were good and he was back checking and doing those things. I think Torts could work with him. And I think that's where the Flyers have to sign him because that's the way you'll know. If Torts can get something out of him, then you've got what you want out of Frost. If you just don't sign him now, you will never know.
I agree with that, and I think that Tortorella can be creative, and he can look at what guys like Frost could bring to the table and get the
Yeah.
best out of them in whatever circumstances. And friend of the show, Alison Lukan, who's been on
Hmm.
to talk about Columbus, tweeted this very specifically that Tortorella is a very creative thinker, and
Hmm.
he looks at analytics in a way that some old school coaches wouldn't
Hmm.
if you're counting him amongst the old school, coaching carousel guys,
Yeah.
he does have some creativity to him. He developed the power kill that was very
Hmm.
successful there, that Allison adeptly brought up as well. And I think that we have to look at some of those things as well. Is he going to have some crazy personality moments? Probably, but, that's just part of the package with him, and I think that he deflects from the players by doing that sometimes, and I personally am more interested in what the players have to say in post-game pressers under a system that Torts puts together and see
Yeah.
where that accountability lies. I don't really care as much what he has to say.
No, I care what he has to say too, though, because I've had a lot of interaction with him, and he's followed Vigneault twice now, and Vigneault once followed
Yeah.
him, which is crazy. Like that these guys, like three different teams that they both coached. But what John will do that first press conference is he will talk about the accountability, all of the things that Chuck has not really been able to get installed here. He will get them installed. Chuck just has to sit back. Like really, that's where we're at right now with the
Yeah.
Flyers.
Yeah, and I think that, that's a really good approach, and we
Yeah,
just have to wait and see what the other half of the puzzle is in terms of player personnel moves this
right.
offseason, see how that aligns with John Tortorella as your head coach, and then make some assessments as to how you think it's gonna go from there, because this is 2 pieces to this giant puzzle, right, for the
Hmm.
Flyers, and it's really 3. It's the draft, it's free agency, it's then putting together this roster with a coach, and who are the assistant coaches going to be in this circumstance as well. So there's a lot more pieces to this puzzle. We will be following those developments as the summer progresses. And I certainly hope it's going to be an exciting off season for the Flyers.
It will be. Don't worry.
All right, that'll do it for our special edition here. Locked On Flyers is, of course, free and available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, wherever you are listening. So subscribe. You'll get all of our episodes here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We will be back again with a full episode continuing this conversation. We're going to talk about our prospect profile on Julian Lutz and answer some of your mailbag questions. Have a good afternoon, everyone.